The ballroom glittered with 1,000 points of light, reflecting off champagne glasses and diamond necklaces, but Maya Chen couldn't shake the heaviness settling in her chest. She'd come to the Grandview Hotel's charity gala as a last-minute replacement server, desperately needing the extra cash to cover her mother's medical bills. She'd expected wealth and glamour, but what she witnessed instead made her stomach turn, a room full of people who'd forgotten what it meant to be human. The elderly man sat alone at table 12, his trembling hands struggling to cut the prime rib on his plate. His suit, though clearly expensive, hung slightly loose on his frail frame, and his white hair was neatly combed but thin. Maya noticed him immediately, not because he stood out, but because of how completely invisible he seemed to everyone around him. People brushed past his wheelchair without a second glance. Conversation flowed around him like water around a stone, never quite touching him. Maya balanced her tray and made her way toward him, weaving through tables where Pittsburgh's elite discussed stock portfolios and Mediterranean vacations. As she approached, she heard a woman at the adjacent table whisper loudly to her companion, "That's Victor Sterling's father." Sad, really. They say he's lost it completely. Victor keeps him around out of obligation, but honestly, it's uncomfortable. The words hit Maya like a slap. She'd heard the Sterling name. Everyone had. Victor Sterling had built a tech empire worth billions, his face regularly gracing the covers of Forbes and Fortune. But this man, his father, sat ignored at a charity event supposedly celebrating generosity and community. "Would you like some help with that, sir?" Maya asked softly, kneeling beside the wheelchair so she could meet his eyes. They were startling, clear and blue, with an intelligence that contradicted everything the whispers suggested. The old man looked at her with surprise, as though he'd forgotten people could still see him. His hand shook as he set down his knife and fork. Yes, thank you. My name is Thomas. Thomas Sterling." "I'm Maya," she said, helping him cut his meat into manageable pieces. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Sterling." "Please, just Thomas." His voice was soft but steady. "You're the first person tonight who's spoken to me like I'm still here." His eyes glistened, and Maya felt her throat tighten. For the next 20 minutes, Maya stayed beside Thomas whenever she could steal a moment from her serving duties. He told her about teaching high school mathematics for 40 years, about his late wife who'd loved gardening, about Victor as a curious boy who'd taken apart every electronic device in their house. Thomas wasn't lost or confused. He was lonely, trapped in a body that no longer cooperated, while his mind remained sharp as ever. "I used to be someone," Thomas said quietly, watching the crowd. "Now I'm just someone's burden." "You're not a burden," Maya said firmly. "You're a person." "You matter," the microphone screeched, drawing everyone's attention to the stage. Victor Sterling stood there, commanding the room with practiced ease. He was everything his father wasn't: powerful, confident, surrounded by people vying for his attention. His speech about the importance of giving back rang hollow to Maya as she watched Thomas's face fall with each word his son spoke without acknowledging him. "And now," Victor continued, "I'd like to introduce this year's honoree, someone whose generosity has funded 3 new community centers." A crash interrupted him. Thomas's water glass had tipped, spilling across the table. People nearby recoiled, some rolling their eyes. Maya saw the humiliation wash over Thomas's face, saw his hands shake harder as he tried uselessly to mop up the water with his napkin. "I'm sorry," Thomas whispered. "I'm so sorry." Maya grabbed a cloth and cleaned up quickly, but she could feel the stares, the judgment. When she looked up at the stage, Victor had already moved on, not even glancing toward his father's table. The presentation continued, but Maya couldn't focus. She watched Thomas shrink further into his wheelchair, his earlier spark extinguished by shame. Something in her chest cracked open. She thought of her own mother, fighting cancer in a hospital bed, and how Maya would give anything for one more conversation. One more chance to tell her she mattered. An hour later, as dinner wound down and people mingled over dessert, Maya noticed Thomas reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a folded stack of papers, smoothed them against his lap with shaking hands, then looked toward the stage with an expression of desperate longing. "Do you need something?" Maya asked, returning to his side. Thomas looked at her and she saw tears threatening to spill. I wrote something for tonight. Victor asked me to prepare remarks about what community meant to me back when I was still teaching. But he gestured helplessly at his legs, at his trembling hands. I can't get up there. And even if I could, no one wants to hear from the old man who spills his water. Maya's heart pounded. She looked at the stage, at Victor now laughing with a group of donors, then back at Thomas. What if you could? Give your speech, I mean. Maya, look at me. I can't even stand without help. The stairs to that stage. What if I helped you? The words came out before she'd fully thought them through. What if I got you up there? Thomas stared at her. Why would you do that? You don't know me. If my own son won't, because it's the right thing to do, Maya said simply. Because you have something to say and people should hear it. Because you matter, Thomas? For a long moment, they looked at each other. Then Thomas nodded, tears finally spilling over. I think I'd like to try. Maya's hands shook as she released the wheelchair brake. She had no plan, no permission, and every eye in the room would be on them. She could lose her job. But when she looked at Thomas's face, at the hope kindling there, she knew she couldn't walk away. She pushed the wheelchair toward the stage. Conversations died as people noticed. Maya felt their stares like physical weight, confusion, annoyance, curiosity. Victor's head snapped toward them, his expression darkening. Maya, what are you? A senior server hissed, but Maya kept moving. At the stage stairs, she locked the wheelchair and helped Thomas stand. His legs trembled violently. He gripped her arm so tightly it hurt, but she held him steady. Together, step by agonizing step, they climbed. Maya could hear gasps, whispers, Victor's voice saying, Dad, you don't have to. But Thomas did have to. Maya could feel it in how hard he fought for each step, how determined his grip remained despite his body's protests. When they finally reached the microphone, Thomas was breathing hard, leaning heavily on Maya's arm, but his eyes were clear. I'm sorry to interrupt, Thomas said, his voice soft but amplified by the microphone. The room fell silent. My name is Thomas Sterling. For 40 years, I taught mathematics to students who society had written off. Kids from broken homes, kids with learning disabilities, kids who'd been told they'd never amount to anything. Maya felt his weight shift as he found his balance, and slowly, carefully, she stepped back, remaining close but letting him stand alone. My son asked me to speak tonight about community, about giving back, but until 10 minutes ago, I wasn't sure I had anything left to say. You see, it's easy to forget that you matter when the world stops seeing you, when your body fails and people look through you instead of at you, when even your own, his voice cracked. He glanced at Victor, who stood frozen at the edge of the stage. When even the people who love you forget you're still here. The silence in the room was absolute. Maya could see faces shifting, uncomfortable recognition dawning on the guests who'd ignored Thomas all evening. But tonight, a young woman named Maya reminded me that kindness doesn't require wealth or status. It requires only that we see each other, really see each other, as human beings worthy of dignity and respect. Thomas's voice grew stronger. True community isn't built in boardrooms or at charity galas. It's built in moments when someone chooses compassion over convenience, when someone helps an old man stand when it would be easier to look away. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. She looked at Victor and saw his own tears, saw the realization of his failure written across his features. So I'll say this, Thomas continued. Before you write another check tonight, before you congratulate yourselves on your generosity, ask yourself, when was the last time you truly saw someone? When was the last time you chose kindness when no one was watching, when there was nothing to gain? Thomas turned to Maya, extending a shaking hand. Thank you for seeing me. The room erupted in applause, thunderous, genuine, transforming. People stood, and Maya saw more than one person wiping away tears. But she barely noticed because Victor was moving toward them, reaching for his father with tears running freely down his face. Dad, I'm so sorry, Victor said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. Thomas embraced his son, and Maya quietly stepped away, giving them privacy. She made her way down the stage stairs, expecting to slip back into invisibility, but hands reached out to stop her. The woman who'd called Thomas sad earlier grasped Maya's arm, her face transformed by shame and recognition. "What you did?" she started, but couldn't finish. Maya simply nodded and continued walking. She didn't do it for recognition. She did it because a lonely old man deserved to be seen, because kindness shouldn't be conditional, because humanity mattered more than protocol or propriety or profit. The next morning, Maya arrived home exhausted to find an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a check that made her gasp, enough to cover her mother's medical bills 3 times over, and a handwritten note on expensive stationery. Maya, true wealth is measured not in dollars but in dignity, not in possessions but in compassion. You gave my father something priceless last night, his humanity. Please accept this small gift and know that Thomas will never be invisible again. Neither should you be. I've established a scholarship fund in your name for nursing students who embody the kind of compassion you showed. The world needs more people like you. Victor Sterling. Maya clutched the note to her chest and wept for Thomas, for her mother, for the reminder that in a world increasingly focused on status and success, the simplest acts of human kindness remained the most powerful forces for change. She'd helped an old man stand to give a speech, but what she'd really done was remind a room full of people what it meant to be truly human. And sometimes that's the most valuable thing any of us can do.